Today we have the Dragonfly Pokemon Flygon, which, wait, sorry, that's not right. We already did that. Today we have the original Dragonfly Pokemon, Yanma, and its evolution, Yanmega, which isn't Yanma's Mega Evolution, even though its Japanese name translates to Mega Yanma. Yanma's docile appearance makes for an intriguing juxtaposition to its terrifying evolution. No, seriously, check out the origin section on Yanmega's Bulbapedia page. That's the kind of stuff that makes people not like bugs. Today we'll see if these Pokemon cause similar discomfort in the competitive scene. So, how good were Yanma and Yanmega actually? And in this video, we'll be going over these competitive formats. It's no exaggeration to say that Yanma was one of the worst Pokemon in the entire game in its debut generation. Not only was its bulk absolutely awful, it had absolutely no move pool whatsoever. Not that it make much use of it anyway with its pathetic offensive stats. There's laughable damage output, and then there's Yanma, which causes guffaws. It wasn't usable in OU, it wasn't usable in UU, and it wasn't even usable in NU. You know, NU, the tier where Ghastly is viable. Being outclassed by Ledyon is one of the most depressing things imaginable in Pokemon, but by Arceus, Yanma did it. And honestly, if it was allowed in Little Cup, it would probably be terrible there too. The only reason was to ever use Yanma was to either try to send your opponent in a state of shock so severe they wouldn't be able to move until after their timer run out, or to try and beat your friend with it, knowing that they would never be able to recover from the embarrassment of losing to Yanma. But ironically, Yanma had quite a notable niche in GSC Ubers, where its ability to take on Lugia was as excellent as the price on this bridge I'd like to sell you. In conclusion, Gen 2 Yanma was dreadful and then some. The restriction of EVs and addition of natures meant Yanma could hit more Pokemon for greater damage. It also got an excellent ability, Speed Boost. Unfortunately, it was still ludicrously fragile and incredibly weak with no move pool to speak of, so OU was a pipe dream to end all pipe dreams, and UU wasn't much better. However, in NU, Yanma was finally able to find a niche with a unique reversal set. Thanks to Speed Boost, it didn't need Slack Berry and could thus run Lychee Berry to give it a much needed attack boost. Its Spikes immunity also meant it was able to consistently get down to 1 HP with Substitute, allowing for fully powered reversals. And if it was forced to switch out, usually by the threat of priority, it could still come back in for another attack later, especially since it had a handy Earthquake immunity. Yanma's Stab Flying was also a great tool to ensure some of the tier's most common fighting resists, like Roselia and Venomoth, wouldn't be stopping it. But even with NU being significantly less bulky than the tiers above it, Yanma was still not a KO machine. However, since it was so fast, it was one of the best Pokemon at cleaning up weakened teams, allowing its trainer to finish the job that Yanma's hard-hitting teammates had started, with spikes and threats like Huntail, easily capable of leaving the opposition battered enough for Yanma to take over the endgame. It wasn't OU stardom, but after that disastrous debut generation, it was nice for Yanma to have a real place in a metagame. Then the moment you've all been waiting for, Yanma evolved and Yanmega became one of the most hyped Pokemon in Diamond and Pearl. It had a terrific special attack stat with which it could fire off some excellent newfound stabs in Bug Buzz and Air Slash, and it would blitz right by most fast offensive Pokemon, even Choice Scarfers, thanks to Speed Boost. It could also put one of the opponent's Pokemon out of commission with Hypnosis, which gained an accuracy boost and was now a semi-reliable 70%. This made Yanmega one of the most common leads in early Generation 4. It wasn't restricted to using Speed Boost though. It could also rock some Tinted Lens, which made its not very effective attacks hit with regular power, meaning that even Tyranitar and Jirachi were hit neutrally by Air Slash. This meant it could spam its stabs quite easily with a powerful Choice Spec set and hit everything that wasn't Blissey incredibly hard. Yanmega was actually one of the most defining Pokemon around for a while, and even though it was seriously crippled by the omnipresent Stealth Rock, it still got the job done. Some players got inventive and even used its Stealth Rock weakness to their advantage with the Lychee Berry reversal set. But then Platinum came around and Yanmega took a gigantic hit. Hypnosis's accuracy was knocked back down to its original 60%, which is too close to a coin flip to be worth using on a consistent basis. Scizor gained Bullet Punch, and its Choice Band set's powerful U-turn was the metagame's new source of bug-type offense. Heatran's increased popularity necessitated Hidden Power Ground, but then Yanmega would miss out on Hidden Power Fire for Skarmory and Scizor. But most importantly, the Rotom appliances came came into existence. Not only were they excellent spin blockers, making it difficult to reliably clear the field of Stealth Rock for Yanmega, they were also hard counters to the speed boost variant. Thus, Yanmega dropped out of usage. At certain points, some players experimented with it, and the results weren't all terrible, as Yanmega's good qualities were still there. Plus, it was one of the best counters in the game to the ever-annoying Breloom. However, its crippling Stealth Rock weakness was just too much for it to be consistently good again. Yanmega's usage drop saw it find itself in Yu, but that didn't last, as even Registeel couldn't stand up to its Specs Tinted Lens Bug Buzz, meaning that any team without Chansey was going to get blown apart by it. Plus, Yanmega had a great speed tier and a slew of useful resistances to work with, such as a quadruple resist to Venusaur's Mighty Leaf Storm and Toxicroak's Cross Chop, so it didn't have problems getting onto the battlefield and proceeding to crush all in sight. There were plenty of effective spinners, and the tier's ghosts were not the toughest to work around, so Stealth Rock didn't hold it back too much. However, it was still a monstrosity to face, even at half health, still being able to force a KO onto one of the opponent's Pokemon. It was far too overwhelming for the tier, and as such was banned to borderline, that dreadful purgatory which dooms it to being overlooked except by players who are looking to experiment before concluding that Yanmega's issues really do make it not worth using on a consistent basis. However, at least Yanmega finally got legitimate OU stardom, and those who were playing during Diamond and Pearl will remember its role in the metagame fondly. 4th gen VGC isn't too well documented, but Yanmega did have a highly notable appearance in 2009. It was part of Tasuko Mano's team, running a speed boost set with 2 standard moves in Detect and Bug Buzz, then throwing his opponents off with Swagger and Hidden Power Ice. The latter was notable for crushing Salamence, while Swagger could potentially pull Yanmega out of a bind against any tough Pokemon like no other move could. Tasuko impressively reached second at Worlds with his team, and led off with Yanmega in all 3 finals matches, which showed how highly he valued it. Runner-up was not at all a bad placing for the Ogre Darner Pokemon. Despite the Rotom appliances no longer being Ghost type and thus rapid spinning being easier, Yanmega was never able to have any sort of impact in OU, and that is because it was completely, utterly outclassed by the wholly superior, incredibly dangerous Volcarona. There was no reason to use Yanmega's hit and run style when you could do the same thing with Volcarona, who had more power, better coverage, and of course potential to win the game outright with Quiver Dance. Thus, Yanmega dropped to Yu this time, though it wasn't overbearing at all, given the tier's resemblance to the previous generation's OU. However, it was still a notable threat. Speed Boost was walled too easily by Zapdos, but Choice Specs was a terrifying wall breaker. It got plenty of opportunity to fire off its nearly unwallable Bug Buzz against the many fighting types that defined Black and White UU. And though it had to be wary of Stone Edge, it was possibly the best Pokemon at punishing Heracross for locking into either stab. Yanmega safely hit the field often, and when it did, something was likely to drop. Even the mighty Snorlax couldn't stand up to repeated hits. The only reason Yanmega's usage wasn't proportional to its immense threat level was the difficulty it faced because the tier spitters were Blastoise and Hitmontop, which were slow-paced Pokemon and tended to kill offensive momentum, which made it difficult to slot them on the same teams as Yanmega, who thrived in a more fast-paced environment. This necessary evil resulted in difficulty in building effective teams, which in turn limited how often Yanmega was used, and thus it was more of a niche pick than it would seem at first. However, the extra steps one had to take were potentially worth it. Yanmega was one of the most difficult Pokemon to switch into in UU, which is saying something given that the tier was also home to Victini, and that's honestly not bad for a Pokemon with a quadruple Stealth Rock weakness, as even the mighty Moltres ended up beneath it, residing in RU. Yanmega was fast and strong, and its stabs threatened a good amount of popular VGC Pokemon, such as Amoonguss, Cresselia, Hitmontop, and Tyranitar. However, it was immensely weak to the incredibly common spread moves of Heat Wave, Rock Slide, and Blizzard, which made keeping it alive difficult. It also struggled with the highly popular Zapdos, and just like in singles, Volcarona was usually the better choice. Yanmega's advantage over Volcarona was having a mostly risk-free speed boost, since it just had to use Detect, which is used Overprotect to guard against Imprison. And then from there, it was able to threaten Pokemon like Latios, Infernape, Abomasnow, and Weavile. Detect also potentially let it safely get enough speed boost to outrun weather abusers in their respective weathers, notably Sandrush Excadrill and Swift Swim Ludicolo. And unlike Volcarona, Yanmega also had room in its moveset for Hidden Power Ground, preventing Heatran from stopping it. But Volcarona was still an overall superior Pokemon, and in 2013, Jonathan Neville reached 24th at the US Nationals with it, using the more standard set. Not exactly a dominant performance to say the least, but Yanmega did have its niche, as tiny as it may have been. Despite the fog helping get rid of Stealth Rock, Yanmega couldn't cut it in OU. Gen 6 Mega Fueled power creep led to an environment completely inhospitable to it. Volcarona also continued to exist, and thus Yanmega was never spared a thought in OU, which should be to nobody's surprise. Its problems didn't stop there though, as the Generations power creep trickled down to UU, with Blissey now inhabiting the tier and completely stuffing Yanmega. It dropped to RU, but it was quickly deemed to be far too powerful for the tier, slicing through everything with its power, getting many opportunities to dish those hits out thanks to its speed and resistances, and even being able to take some decently powerful hits to boot with its solid defense stat. This resulted in its swift ban to RUBL, and as such Yanmega was doomed to either find use in UU or not get used. Unfortunately, it wasn't just Blissey that stopped it. It also struggled with the incredibly common Florges and Crobat. This inability to break through these Pokemon meant Yanmega found it nearly impossible to get anything going against teams with any sort of backbone. It was an inferior choice to Pokemon such as Infernape in this regard. Yanmega was also worthless against faster paced offense teams that ran right over it, and strangely enough, these issues were so glaring that Yanmega's massive Stealth Rock weakness was the least of its worries. It was more an afterthought, which speaks to how severe its other struggles were if a quadruple Stealth Rock weakness wasn't even a primary hindrance in its viability. Yanmega just didn't have a niche worth pursuing in serious UU play, but it couldn't go anywhere lower because beating up defenseless tiers isn't considered fair. Thus, it's stuck in a horrible kind of purgatory in Gen 6. C'est la vie. Yanmega didn't really have even a slight niche in VGC anymore, as it absolutely got walled and destroyed by Talonflame, didn't do much better against Aegislash, and struggled against common megas such as Kangaskhan and Charizard Y. That said, Anthony was seen using Yanmega, reaching runner-up in the seniors division of the Perth Regionals, Len aka Alika reaching 6th in the Masters divisions of the seniors regionals, and Jacob Hardenbauer reaching 45th at the US Nationals. Then in 2015, Jonathan Neville used Yanmega yet again, reaching 5th at the Wisconsin Regionals. Gen 7 was a power creep laden metagame that was inhospitable to Yanmega with Pokemon like Magearna, Toxapex, and Tapu Koko running around. Plus, Volcarona still existed and was better than ever. UU passed Yanmega by quite quickly too, with Blissey returning to Wallet at every corner, while offense mowed right through it, and as such, Yanmega found itself in RU once more. However, this time the metagame was stronger, faster, and bulkier, and as such, Yanmega fit right in, as it was threatening but not overbearing. It had plenty of opportunity to fire off hits with how it threatened a large amount of the tier between its speed, resistances, and decent bulk, but it had several legitimate defensive answers, notably Florges, Eviolite Porygon 2, and Sandstream Gigalith, as well as softer checks like Registeel and Diancie. Of course, it could potentially beat these Pokemon with teammate support and good play, but it was hardly with the consistency or ease of a broken Pokemon. It was one of the few Pokemon that Umbreon truly feared, which could be key in generating systematic pressure and breaking down the defensive core Umbreon anchored, and it terrorized common mid-range Pokemon on bulky offense like Rotomo and Roserade, giving it some use in most matchups should it not have to deal with Stealth Rock, which was not unrealistic given how reliable Mega Blastoise was at rapid spinning it away. Yanmega had some weaknesses that held it back though, because besides the obvious candidate of Stealth Rock, it was threatened by many faster offensive Pokemon such as Salazzle and Raikou. However, overall, it was a fine Pokemon in its new home of RU, with a unique, effective role in the metagame. It required hefty support and wasn't the easiest, most autopilot Pokemon to use, but in the hands of a skilled trainer, the rewards were immense. Yanmega didn't have a niche in VGC 2018 at all, but it's worth mentioning that it got use at the Japanese Nationals, as a trainer named Barry reached 44th with it. And that's it. So how good were Yanma and Yanmega actually? Well, Yanma was one of the worst Pokemon in history, but Yanmega got the buffs necessary to find legitimate use. It was briefly a defining OU Pokemon, and though it has been a victim of the cruel tiering rung after that, it's left a significant mark on the lower tiers it's wound up in, sometimes even being too strong and getting banned as a result. It also had some decent VGC placements, including an impressive World's runner-up title, which is a lot more than several seemingly more powerful Pokemon can claim. Overall, Yanma and Yanmega have had some seriously severe ups and downs, but Yanmega's carried its weight and pulled them up from laughingstock to one of the better bucks. Thanks for watching, everyone, and as always, if you liked the video and you want to see more, be sure to subscribe to False Swipe Gaming for more weekly Pokemon content. And in the comments, I want to know, what do you think about competitive Yanmega? What would you want to give it to make it more viable? Whatever it is, let me know in the comments. Also, thank you so much to our patrons for continued support of our videos, and thank you to everyone else watching as well. And follow my crew on these social media platforms. And that's all I got. See you next time, everyone.